And is it possible to get rich without having your own business? Is it possible to be very wealthy working for someone else? And is it possible to become a billionaire, even as an employee? Although uncommon, American Steve Ballmer is proof that these questions can be answered with a resounding yes. Despite being an exception, Ballmer not only achieved the feat of becoming a billionaire as an employee, but also managed to position himself among the top 10 richest men in the world. But how was this possible? How did he achieve such an impressive feat? As the lone exception among the top 10 richest, Steve managed to amass this fortune by working for others. And although the probability of truly becoming wealthy is much higher as an owner than as an employee, Ballmer is an example of what is called entrepreneurship. This is the example of an entrepreneur who operates within someone else's company. This type of entrepreneur is often overlooked, but is a great example of how visionaries can exist even in employee positions, able to propel companies to the top without being limited by common sense and safe management practices. Former CEO of Microsoft, Steve, was not only exceptional in the results he achieved, but also in the career choices he made. A Harvard University colleague of Bill Gates, he had the opportunity to be one of the founders of Microsoft, alongside Paul Allen, but he chose to decline his friend's invitation and opted to complete his degree in economics and mathematics. While his friend dropped out of college, Steve not only completed his studies, but also later earned an MBA from Stanford University. After graduation, he was again invited by Gates to join Microsoft, which was still a small business at the time, with only Bill Gates and Paul Allen working full-time. However, Ballmer preferred a more secure opportunity, and thus worked for 2 years at the prestigious Procter & Gamble. And it was only in 1980, as he was completing his MBA, that he joined his friend's company, becoming the first employee hired by Microsoft, assuming the important role of the company's business executive. However, Ballmer's entry into the company was accompanied by an interesting mechanism used by startups to ensure and retain top talent. In addition to the position, if Steve Ballmer met a series of goals within a few years, he would be rewarded with ownership stake in the business, a strategy known as vesting, in which there is an agreement between the company and the employee that ensures both a great opportunity for the employee and security for the company, that it will only grant shares to the employee if he truly proves his value and loyalty. This instrument is widely used by startups worldwide. In the case of Microsoft, the agreement was not only a way to motivate Steve Ballmer within the company, but also a way to ensure that he would not leave the startup to join another company in search of better compensation. The strategy was extremely beneficial for both Ballmer and Microsoft. From the early days, Steve was involved in the company's key decisions and even participated in the iconic negotiation between Microsoft and IBM in 1980, the major deal that ensured that every computer from the largest manufacturer at the time had Microsoft's operating system installed. Ironically, the fact that Ballmer was not part of the company's founding group is described by many as an extremely important factor in the unfolding of the negotiation with IBM, since Steve was the only one of the 3 Microsoft representatives who had an understanding of how to negotiate relevant commercial deals at the time, after practical experiences at P&G and academic experiences in college and MBA. The deal was so good for Microsoft that it guaranteed royalties to Bill Gates' company for every computer sold by IBM, and best of all, without an exclusivity clause, allowing the operating system to be licensed to other manufacturers as well, a deal that would make the company a billionaire in a few years. One of the key factors in the negotiation was the fact that the Microsoft trio knew that IBM was having problems with the US government over alleged monopoly practices, and in exchange for giving up the pioneering, at the time of the giant, they conditioned the agreement to a non-exclusivity clause to avoid monopoly charges, an argument that left IBM powerless, which leveraged Microsoft. Later on, the episode illustrates how often companies also rely on brilliance from people other than their founders, while at the same time showing that in an entrepreneur's work, the process is not only about finding market opportunities, but also surrounding oneself with people as smart or smarter than oneself, And at times, Steve Ballmer showed that he was the missing element in the team. He himself was the most communicative figure in the company for decades, mainly due to Bill Gates and Paul Allen's shyness and discretion, and this meant that during the company's growth, he was assigned to Microsoft's sales area, and this characteristic was essential for the employee to be responsible for closing several deals with different manufacturers worldwide, which led to Microsoft's revenue increasing from $16 million in 1981 to $140 million in 1985. A fantastic feat, considering especially the communication and marketing difficulties of the time. Before continuing the video, I have a brief message. These videos take a lot of effort to make, so if you're still watching, please leave a like to support our work. Consider subscribing and leave a comment below. Any comment helps. Now back to the video. For his brilliance in 1986, before Microsoft went public on the stock exchange, Ballmer received approximately 8% of the company's shares, an excellent reward for his years of loyalty. To give an idea of the size of the reward, after the IPO that year, Steve's fortune was already over $51 million, all for just 6 years of work. And in the following years, he continued to be in the spotlight, especially for being the second most famous figure at Microsoft, behind only Bill Gates, who would later become the richest man in the world. While Bill Gates conveyed a considered excessive calmness with his rather monotonous speech, Ballmer is exactly the opposite, with a much more aggressive, noisy, and imposing manner, and this difference caught the public's attention, especially when they were together. In 1998, when Gates decided to step down as CEO, Ballmer was chosen as the founder's successor, and for many, the difference in the profiles of the two could mean different directions for Microsoft. This mistrust was even one of the factors that led the company to face difficulties during the early 2000s, when there were doubts about the company's longevity. However, under Steve's leadership, Microsoft managed to remain a top company, even though for many, the company seemed to be on autopilot for many years, reaping the rewards of the royalties it collected. Despite this, under the executive's leadership, the company's annual revenue increased from $25 billion to $70 billion in 2013, the last year under his command. And while he was at the helm of Microsoft, he faced some controversial moments. And for many, under his leadership, the company missed out on significant opportunities, such as during the defeat in the Internet browser competition, which was won by Google Chrome, making Internet Explorer the butt of jokes. Another famous moment for the billionaire was in 2007 when he ridiculed the arrival of the iPhone, saying that no one would ever pay $500 for a phone. Proof that not even billionaires are always right. Still, he is considered one of Microsoft's biggest advocates for alternative projects, such as the Azure Cloud Storage System and the Xbox console, now a major success for the company. And the magnate's predictions were not entirely wrong, since in 2007, under his leadership, the company acquired a significant stake in a social network that was emerging in the world, Facebook. In this way, in addition to increasing the company's revenue, he also ratified several initiatives that would generate more cash for Microsoft, both in the short and long term. And thanks to these bets, he also managed to increase the company's average profit from $9.4 billion in 2000 to $22 billion by the end of his tenure. Tired of the day-to-day, Steve retired in 2014, passing the baton to executive Satya Nadella. Shortly after, he liquidated part of his shares and bought the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team, which plays in the NBA. However, Steve Ballmer continued to hold a large portion of Microsoft's shares. Interestingly, even more than Bill Gates, who has disposed of over 90% of his shares from 2000 to today, which for many makes Steve believe more in the company than the founder himself. Since 2014, he not only has more shares than Gates, but also is the largest shareholder of the company, with about 4% of the shares, and his confidence in Microsoft has paid off. In 2023, the company achieved its highest valuation ever, and because of his shareholding, Ballmer became the first former employee to break the $100 billion barrier in 2021, and according to Bloomberg, as of the date of this edition, Steve Ballmer has a fortune of $140 billion, making him the sixth richest man in the world. Not bad for someone who worked for years at Microsoft. Interestingly, his fortune today is about $5 billion less than that of Bill Gates. Will he ever surpass his friend's wealth? Share your opinion with us in the comments. Enjoy and also watch the video where we discuss the worst business decisions in recent history, including Steve Ballmer on the list. Best wishes and see you in the next video. Do you know which business model offers high profit margins, immense scalability, and requires low initial investment? The startup market specializing in software development is the optimal choice to bring together all these advantages. However, the only place where you will truly find a highly scalable service that demands low investment is with Roadmap. Roadmap has global experience providing consulting and developing apps for startups in the United States, Europe, and Latin America, making it by far the best option for new entrepreneurs. If you want to venture into the premier market, contact Roadmap right away through the website www.roadmap.co/home or via email at contact@roadmap.co.